Today on the Income Flip podcast, I've got Alan Franks from Atlanta, Georgia. Alan, welcome to the Income Flip podcast.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
Awesome, man. Well, we were getting to know each other a little bit beforehand, and we were talking about business and valuations, and I want to go there, right? Like you are somebody that helps people with money, right? You wrote a book, Empowered Money, and I want to deep dive a little bit on your book and what inspired you to write your book. But one of the areas that we talked about was how you help business owners create a valuation for their business, or like start talking to them about like what is the value of your business. How did that come about? I'm just curious.
I got tired of running into broke entrepreneurs, right?
Mm,
And I said, man, there's a ton of broke entrepreneurs. And by broke, I don't necessarily mean financially broke. I mean, sometimes they were personally broke,
yeah.
mentally broke, right? Emotionally broke. And I started thinking, why? And we need to understand as entrepreneurs that the difference between an entrepreneur and a W 2 job has really shrank in the last couple of years. What do I mean by that? Is that, well, we used to want to go start our own business so we weren't chained to a desk from 9 to 5. Well, guess what? Most people aren't chained to a desk from 9 to 5, right?
Mm,
And guess what is getting more expensive? Things like health insurance, right? And all of a sudden 401k benefits are getting a little bit better, right? So all these benefits of being W 2 have really kind of shrank the gap between business ownership, right, and W 2. But what a W 2 cannot do are two things. Number one, it cannot give you the tax advantages of being a business owner. And the most important thing is that a W 2 can't give you the ability to sell your future earnings, right? And that is what a business can do, is it gives you the ability to not only provide for you and your family and hopefully set some money aside to build your own financial plan, it gives you some tax advantages, and it gives you the ability to have a nice liquidity event when you're ready, right? So when we went out to business owners, we were finding that most business owners looked at their business not as an asset, but as an income stream, what we call
yep.
a lifestyle business. And the problem with that is when we don't look at our business as an asset that can grow, that can really add to our overall financial plan, we tend to get burned out. We tend to think, man, how long am I going to have to do this? Am I going to have to do this for the next 30 years here to provide an income stream to save aside 10% into my personal plan here? But when we start looking and say, hey, what is the value of my business? Okay, let's say it's $1 million. Could I 10x that in the next 10 years and retire at age 45, 55, whatever it is, with 10 million bucks, right? And that's the challenge. That's just a totally different way of thinking about your business. In general, that inspires. And it starts what you mentioned earlier, Rob. It starts a leadership journey. Because if you're going to 10x your business, guess what? You got to 10x yourself, right?
Yep.
We have got
Yep.
to grow. Your business is only going to grow up to your leadership capacity, right? So when we take on a business owner, my love language is knowledge. My love language is books. When we take on a business owner, we're sending them books once a month to read, right? And one of the coolest things about this journey of my career of working with business owners is that as we build out this framework of helping people build their enterprise value, I'm having to go through this journey myself. I'm reading these books. I'm going back to my team and saying, man, we really stink in this area. Let's get better, right? So that's probably been the most fun part about this journey, right? Is me getting better at being a business owner for my team. But in general, what I love about working with business owners is almost think like a Venn diagram here, where we have their personal vision, values, strengths, weaknesses right here that we have to work on. We obviously have the business systems, processes, KPIs we got to work on. And then we have the personal financial plan that we need to be feeding here. And where all those three interlap right there, that's where life happens, baby. And that's where we live. And because that's where business owners live.
You know, it's so cool as you're describing this. I'm filtering it through a framework that we developed years ago called the Seven Levels of Freedom. And at level 3, it's about how do you take this, you know, as you go through like the seven levels, and if you think of it as like a pyramid and you're like a mountain, almost like a mountain top at the very top, right? Level one is energy, mindset, identity. Level two is predictable income. That's kind of like the self-employed stage. Most people get stuck at level two, right? Because they're not prepared to start converting their hard earned, they're the doers of the business. They're really the doers of the job. They aren't willing or aren't taught or haven't sought the right mentors to create an operating system for their business, right? And we created an operating system called BOSS, right? The Business Owner Success System. That essentially is these four quadrants. It takes very similar to your Venn diagram, right? It's like mission, visions, values, beliefs. Then it's process. Then it's all the KPIs of the business, and then it's profit, right? And so one of the reasons why I love myself working with builders, developers, investors, is because, and I can hear the passion in your voice. We're cut from the same cloth, right? We are like, I run a real estate business that serves real estate investors, and they're business owners just like me, and we're all on the same journey together, very much like you. You're on that journey too, and we're just kind of reaching down and helping that next generation get to the next summit, whatever that is for them, right? Like whatever they want. So I hear that when I hear you speaking. Is that what inspired you to write the book? Are you like a teacher by nature? Is that?
I I am, and so my book, Empowered Money, I wrote it because I felt like I had to. That was an obligation. I put 15 years of experience in the financial planning world into this book because not everybody can afford my fee, right? And that's fine. And I can't help everybody. But the idea of this book is if you read this book and you do everything in it, you would have done what I'm typically charging people at a minimum 3K, oftentimes 12,000, sometimes even more, to do for 20 bucks on Amazon, right? And so the idea was, hey, how can we create a step-by-step process where somebody can start off with their vision, values, and dreams and reverse engineer a financial plan to help them reach those vision, values, and dreams in the quickest, most tax advantaged, and most cost efficient way possible. That was the idea behind the book. And the truth is, Rob, it was so laborious, so time consuming.
Yeah.
I've got scars. Like part of me wants to go write another book. The other part is like, do you remember editing this thing, right? And so, anyways, it was certainly a labor of love, and I'm really glad it's done. But I'm also really proud that it's not just some fluff piece that's that nobody's ever going to use, or maybe makes people feel good but it's not going to do anything. No, it's real, man. This is a real deal. It's designed so people can go A to Z in their financial planning.
Yeah, it's got meat to it. Essentially, it's got
You
real
got
meat.
it.
It's not a fluff piece, right? It's got meat to it. It's all your scars. Probably like, one of the things that you have the unique advantage and perspective of is when you speak to a lot of self-employed people, business owners, you start seeing patterns. You start seeing patterns in how wealth was created and how businesses are formed. I'm just curious, right? What patterns have you noticed, right, that have served business owners, right, as they're building and creating asset value of their business? And what patterns do you notice for the people that are getting stuck and they just seem to kind of like repeat the same year over and over and over again, and they can't create tangible value out of their business?
Yeah, yeah. So let's just talk about wealth create. Let's zoom out and just talk about wealth creation as a whole here. I've found that there's really three good ways to create wealth. One is going to be via the stock market. Okay, stocks, bonds, right, and let's even throw crypto in there as well right now, right? Because that's on a bit of a purge, right? But in general, what we're doing here is just buying something and letting it ride. Okay, and what's good about that is that it's typically easy to do. If you're employed, you can just click a little button and it adds into your 401k. If you're self-employed, we need to talk about the most tax advantage way of doing that. A little bit harder, you just got to set it up. But in general, buying a portfolio is rather easy to do, and you're letting some of the best entrepreneurs in the world who work really hard build their businesses, and it's part of your portfolio. Right? And so that is one of the easiest ways to build wealth. The second way would be real estate, right? And I'm a big fan of real estate. I hold a lot of it in my, we've got about 6 Airbnbs that we run, and so I'm a big fan, and it's done me very well. That being said, Robert Kiyosaki told me it was passive income, and I haven't seen much passive about owning rental homes, right? So now we're doing more
Well,
syndicates.
especially Airbnbs, you're owning little hotels.
Exactly
And,
right.
yeah, it's a lot of
Exactly. My
work.
goodness, right?
It's another job.
My wife's ready to sell all of them, right?
Yeah.
And then the third way is to start or buy and build and sell a business. And when you look at the wealthiest people in America, they are all business owners, right? And so I think that if you're W-2 and you max out your 401k every single year, I think you're going to have a really good life. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's going to be easy, right? You're going to be able to, typically, you're going to be able to be home and be with your kids. More importantly, you're going to be able to be present with your kids, which is what business owners don't have a luxury of being, right? That's the biggest cost. In my opinion, the biggest cost of being a business owner is the lack of presence when things are going south, right? It's so hard. I've got to fight every single night to be present with my family, right? I'm there, but am I there? And that's something I've got to work on constantly, right? And so,
Yeah, I learned that the hard way.
yeah, no
I
kidding.
let's see. I started building my first business when I'm 52 now. I started building my first business with my best friend when I was 24. And man, we worked all the time. And so we just developed this pattern of just work, right? And fast forward, let's say, married. I have, my little girl's 23 now. But I remember this conversation vividly where my wife was like, listen, you're here, but you're not here, right? Your brain is on building, continuing to build. And I had to learn as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, to create these boundaries in order to give life to the thing that matters most, which is like you're building all this stuff for your family and your friends and your loved ones, right? And you're like, oh yeah, like I have to reprioritize what I'm doing, right? So I just wanted to double click on that because there's probably somebody going through that season right now. And what I heard you say is that's a very common thing. And I'm like, yep, guilty. I know that's common, right?
And more right now, Rob, than ever. I don't know when this podcast is going to be released, but right now it's in September. The summer vacations are over. People are getting back to work, and every business owner or client of mine is just knee deep in shit right now, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just like it's like whack-a-mole right now. One fire's out, they put out another, and then honestly, we are in a challenging economic environment right now. There's a lot of things changing, from taxes to tariffs to I-9s becoming a huge deal with undocumented workers. We've got a business selling for one of our clients selling a business for $7 million. Unfortunately, he's having to lay off his top employee on Friday because of an I-9 status, right? So there's so much new stuff going on right now, and so more than ever right now, it's a challenge to segment your life and be present when it
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah, I think for anybody listening is it's 100% possible. It's just about being aware and know and calendaring correctly, like putting it in your calendar correct, following it, and just being conscious to be present. I think that in itself, right, is important. Anyhow, we won't go down that rabbit hole. It's an important rabbit hole for people that are building things. Know that it is a very common thing. And
And Rob,
you
one
just,
more comment on that. I'm actually reading
yeah.
a book right now that I've recommended to a lot of entrepreneurs called A Minute to Think. Okay,
Mm.
and A Minute to Think is a good title when you know the entire book right there. But it's not just thinking about in the morning about what you want to build. It's not just thinking in the afternoon and reflecting on the day and say what went right, what went wrong, what do I need to do better tomorrow. It's actually scheduling some time during the day. This is my biggest takeaway, to worry, right? Because when I take my business home for me, it's not necessarily always the good and the exciting stuff, right? I can segment that all day long. It's, oh my gosh, we got this fire that's still lingering out there. I wonder what's going to happen here, right? And that worry will spill out, right? And it'll cost you not only in the home, but also in your own business because you need to be thinking about growth, right? So scheduling some time to just freaking worry. By the way, we call that risk management too, right? We need to worry about things. Worry is an evolutionary trait of ours, right? We need to spend some time worrying. Yes, we want to be optimistic. Yes, we want to be positive, right? But in general, we also, if we're worrying about something, there's a reason. We need to spend some time to it, but we need to segment it and be able to, okay, we thought about it. We wrote down the problem very clearly. We have somewhat of a solution. Let's move on.
I call that my chess time. I'm playing chess. I'm mentally thinking, okay, this, that, here, this move, go there, right? Like, and there's a lot of risk mitigation. If I do this, this is gonna happen. Like, there's a lot of risk mitigation, right? That's why our brains are constantly just going. Well, cool. Well, I hear you with that. So, and I took you off track. Sorry to go down that rabbit hole a little bit, but I think it's an important component of it. Let's get back to creating an asset value and like making your business into a business that is sellable if you want, right? Because like if the business is a really great business and it's pumping out a lot of cash, why would you sell it unless there's like life changes or you want to do something drastically different? But it gives you options, right? To be thinking that it gives you options. So maybe walk us through how you help a business owner think about it when they have
So
not been doing it that way.
yeah, so Rob, you hit the nail on the head. The term exit planning actually pulls horribly, right? Because being a business owner, it's more than just it's an identity. It's a level of
Oh,
toughness
yeah.
and grit, right? There's some prestige behind being a business owner because so many people want to be a business owner, but very few people have the gumption to go make it happen, right? So when we talk about exit planning, it doesn't pull well, it doesn't sit well, right? And then we go one step further, say, no, 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 no. All exit planning is good business planning with a deadline. That's it. Good business planning with a deadline. Because the truth is we may not control when we exit this business. In a perfect world, we do. In a perfect world, we have a great long career, right? We sell out, we make a lot of money, right? But here's the deal: we are one bad visit to the doctor's office by
Yeah.
not choosing when to exit this business, right? I got a text from one of my clients. Her father's a client of mine as well. He went into a heart attack. He had a heart attack. And by the way, he was growing a great business, right? He survived that heart attack. He texted me the other day, last night. He said, I'm getting better, right? But now all of a sudden, where does that leave the business, right? Are we going to be able to still grow this thing that was really had a lot of momentum and a lot of teeth? Or are we going to have to set back, right? And the truth is that he doesn't have a succession plan, right? There's no plan in place. If you're a business owner, I want you to think about this. If I did not wake up this morning, what happens to my business? Because most of the time, it's worthless. It shuts down, never to operate again. All of that mental equity, sweat equity, emotional equity, down the tubes, right? We've got to, whether it's a partner, whether it's a key employee, we've got to have something called a one-way buy-sell agreement that says, hey, if I drop dead, okay, you're buying this business from me. It's only right that you get compensated for all the extra hours that you put into that business there. And it's only right that we do that for the people that we're leaving behind as well, right? So we've got to have that risk management mind on where we're worrying and saying, okay, what's the biggest risk of business? It's me. It's me, right? Is a risk of, hey, if I get burned out mentally and emotionally, there's a risk. If I have a health event, there's a risk. Well, here's the thing. We can plan around this, right? We can have a plan around this, and we need to have it written down. We need to have it well communicated, and we need to have the ability to legally execute that plan.
Yeah. And there's probably some key man insurance that's in there, right?
It sure does help.
Right. It would
Sure does
help.
help.
It would help, right? You've got some key people. I keep saying this today, talking about heart attacks. Our director of operations, her brother just had a heart attack, and so she's like she's like the controller of all the businesses, right? Like she runs everything. So she was out today, and I realized, wow, there's like a lot of like the train is off the tracks because she's not in place conducting flight patterns for all the planes. I'm like, we need to figure that piece out, right? I've
Totally.
got one of our because we're a we've got a bunch of different uh, brands, and one of my partners is like, hey, there's 100,000 that needs to get transferred over. Like, we need somebody to transfer. I have no idea how to transfer money right within the business. So, yeah, I've got somebody who's been running that ship for a while, and she's got full control. So I have to think about that. What
Luckily,
happens if she
she
gets
wasn't the one that had the heart. Luckily, she
correct?
wasn't the one that had the heart
Gives
attack,
me
right?
time. Gives me
And
time to
so
plan it out. Yeah.
Somebody mentioned something to me and it's really kind of stuck. Anybody can sell a business, right? It may not be for a lot of money, may not be for what it's worth. Anybody can sell a business, but only a few people can transition a business to Gen 2, right? Where Generation 2 doesn't have to be your kid. It could be that next employee, right? And I want to say this, in a world where private equity is coming in and gobbling up all these companies, right? There's something noble about selling internally to an employee, right? There's something noble about it, but it also it's just good risk management planning to say, hey, listen, if we never get to that sell day, if I drop dead, we have this agreement to sell here, right? But I would also say where key man insurance comes in is who's to say that he's going to outlive you? Who's to say he or she's not going to have that event, right? So we need to have good planning around that as well. So I realize that we're getting into the minutia here of things that could go wrong, but that's part of good business planning because here's the deal. If you are going to get bought out by an outside buyer and they're going to come in and they're going to do their due diligence, they're going to look at your risk management planning, saying, hey, all right, if Alan, let's say they're going to buy me out. Alan's going to stay on for another 3 years. Well, what happens if something happens to Alan? Oh, he's got somebody else to step in. Perfect. Great. Right? They're going to be looking at that risk management because they're going to be looking at every single reason to lower that multiple and pay you less. And when they see those weaknesses, they're going to pick at them. So why don't we get our legal planning in line? Why don't we get our accounting in line? Why don't we get our risk management plan in line here? It's just good business. It needs to happen. And I'll be honest with you, Rob, when people hire us, I swear like a third of the stuff we're doing is stuff that they know that they need to do. It's just a
Sure.
little ounce of accountability and a little bit of help goes a long way. A third of this stuff is stuff they never even know existed and they're really excited about it. And then, Rob, I've been telling people this. Yeah, I don't know if these numbers are true, but a third of it is, to be transparent with you, we don't know the answers to either, right? And I think that's fair to say in today's environment, rapidly changing rules, regulations, taxes, right? I think it's okay to say, we don't know this. We're going to figure this out with you. But in general, two-thirds of the stuff, we're either going to know and introduce to you, or you already know, and we're just going to help you get it done.
Yeah, Alan, the longer I'm just building businesses and teams, I realize, all the information out there is free, especially today with ChatGPT. Like, everything's free. Information's easy, execution's hard, and you need either a coach, a planner, a motivator to be like, dude, did you get that done? Have you moved the needle forward? Like, did you check that thing? Did you get your will? Check. Did you get your trust? Check. Did you have you funded it? Like you got to move
Yes.
those things along. I know that my wife and I sat down, we redid everything, and we've got like all the trust papers, but we haven't funded the trust. Does it like, and every time I'm about to hop on a plane this afternoon. Every time I'm hopping on a plane, I'm always like, I need to do that, right? And what happens is, as business people, it falls down the list of priorities,
Totally.
and it shouldn't, right? It is like it should not fall down on that list of priorities because, well, we're like we just assume that everything's going to be okay, right? No.
You got it right. A couple thoughts on that. I am under the same impression you are. Information right now is cheap. It is, which is why I wrote this book and gave away all my best secrets, right, for $20. Most people pay me thousands of dollars to do that. For $20, you can get it right here, right? But I know that even if you read this, you're not going to accomplish, a quarter of it, right? Because accountability goes so far. And when we look at things like buy-sell agreements between partners, it is amazing. The number is disgusting. The percentage that are not ever signed is something like 90% of buy-sell agreements are never executed, right? And so what's lacking in this relationship is somebody to help, and I want to, help get shit done here,
Yeah,
right? We got
accountability, like an
all this
accountability partner.
stuff,
Yeah.
lingering, yet we still have a full functioning, just a really fast moving train called our business that we've got to work on revenue and profit and and executing on the promises that we've made. Then all of a sudden that will and that trust that's there that we need to get done just gets moved down, right? And so what we the analogy we use is owner, coach, QB, right? The business owner that hires us is the owner. They're the owner. They're the Jerry Jones or the Arthur Blank looking down on the field, right? Oftentimes I'm the coach that's having to call the plays, right? And then we also have somebody else working with me that's the QB that's getting the ball to the accountant, getting the ball to the attorney, making certain that they don't drop the ball here on this, right? Because the truth is that we're trying to move the ball down the field, reading the risk, reading the defense, getting the ball to the right person at the right time there. And you need somebody to quarterback all that, because the truth is that your accountant's not going to talk to your attorney, who's not going to talk to your banker, right? You got to have somebody bring everybody together, get them on the same page here, get them in alignment, and run a well executed play.
I love that. I'm going to steal that. I'm going to use that, by the way, because it's so true. It's great. Project management happens that way, right? There's the owner, and then there's like, okay, I need this thing done, right? So you're delegating it, but then that person needs somebody that they can delegate to quarterback the entire thing, because they are playing coach at that point, right? That's cool. I'm going to steal that from you, Alan.
Well, the thing is, going with this analogy, the QB needs to be focused in on that play and that play only. The
Yeah.
coach needs to be focused in on the next three series, right? And so the coach has got to make certain that the right players are on the field at the time. They're thinking two or three in advance. So as a business owner, let's break this down to practicality here. As the business owner here, when I'm working with my clients here, it's hard to be both the coach and the QB all the time, because the QB is
Yeah.
very focused, very narrow, get shit done mentality here, because this stuff does not complete itself. We got to get it done here. Where the coach needs to be able to zoom out a little bit, take a breath, and say, okay, is this the right play? What's the next play going to be? What's the defense going to do next, right? So it's just, the coach needs to be able to take a time to think and play chess, right? But on the other hand, that QB needs to be helping getting it done, because these things will linger.
Get it executed, right? Fantastic. We have a lot of real estate investors in here that are more than likely in partnerships with other investors doing deals, right? They might have entered into an operating agreement with somebody to go fix and flip a house. So let's just use that as a example, right? Like, let's risk mitigate that a little bit. Two people meet at a networking event. They're like, hey, I'll put up the money, and they're like, great, I'll find the deal, and they go into business together, and they get a simple operating agreement off the internet. Everything's cool until it's not cool, right?
Yeah.
What the deal starts going south. One person isn't living up to the expectation. One person gets sick in the middle of the project.
Yep.
One person dies in the middle of the project. Like, what are some basic things? What's some basic advice that you can give just at that granular dirt level of, somebody listening to this podcast right now, just saying like, oh, we're about to do a fix and flip with this one, this one partner, and I need to make sure that I set this up as best as I can.
You got it. So whenever I start working with somebody, I actually have a list of professionals, and I ask the person to rank that professional. And one of the professionals, like bankers, mortgage lenders, realtors, one of the professionals here is the attorney, right? They're both the estate planning attorney and the business attorney, which oftentimes can be the same one, right? And it's amazing to me how little people have a good connection to a good attorney, right? And so the truth is that a buy-sell agreement is very easy to write up. It really doesn't cost that much. You don't have to fund it with life insurance, although you typically do, right? And then we also need to make sure that buy-sell agreement is not just about life insurance, but also about its sickness or an injury, right? So, we are dealing with a case right now where the person passed away and gave 50% to his wife and 50% to his son, who's not the son of the wife, right? And now all of a sudden, like, what kind of planning are we talking about here? So now all of a sudden, the son's got to come up with a lot of money to buy out the wife and all this stuff, right? And there was no life insurance there, right? So these things are really, these things happen. We see disabilities all the time where all of a sudden, all right, 50-50 partnership, but now only one person's doing all the darn work, right? And the other person's still getting 50% of the dividend on this thing, right? Or if they pass away and all of a sudden it's the wife, or even worse, the kids, not doing anything, still getting 50% of the dividend, right? These things happen every single day. They are 100% preventable. It's, you know, if you're listening to this, you know you need to do this, right? Yes, it's going to cost you $1,000, $1,500 to get it down on paper.
Do it now. Do it now. Do it now. Right? That's kind.
Now, what are we doing here, guys? I've got a revelation, public service announcement. You're gonna die. You are gonna die. All right. I do not know when, but public service announcement. Black swan events happen. As Forrest Gump said, shit happens. Right.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. It's just a matter of when. Right. Let's say if you did not wake up this morning, what happens to your finances? What happens? Right?
Yeah.
And I need you to
It's a
think.
powerful question to ask.
You got it, right? I need you to take some time to worry about that, right? Once again, worry is evolutionary. Worry is a good thing, right? Worry without action is what leads to stress. Worry plus action leads to less stress.
Yeah. Yeah. No, such great advice, right? This wasn't the direction I was intending for us to go in, but it's such a powerful direction, right? Such a power. Okay. So, Alan, let's get back to your book real fast, right? If somebody wanted to get a hold of your book, how do they? I guess they could find it on find it on Amazon, but maybe you can give us one or two nuggets that are out of the book that you find have helped people on this journey as they're building wealth.
Yeah, so first of all, if you go to our website, empowered-money.com, that's empowered-money.com, a couple of giveaways there. Number one, we've got a 10-minute financial plan for you to do. It's free. It's going to show you a nice little trajectory of where you're heading financially. Because the number one question we get asked is, how are we doing compared to where we should be? And it's such a bogus question, right? So subjective, right? But this will give you some insight on if you are on track to retire, right? So highly recommend you do that. It takes 10 minutes, totally free. Go ahead and knock it out. Also, you're going to see all of our podcasts that we do, all the content that we've been on, right? And you can obviously buy the book on there, right? And what I like about this book, what I'm most proud of here is not just, hey, if you do it, you're gonna have a really good financial plan. But one of the things we talk about here is real estate. I'm a big fan of real estate. My dad raised me on Robert Kiyosaki, right? We used to play Cash Flow, the board game, growing up, right? So we did a lot of buying homes and renting them out. And so right now we've got 6 checks that come in every single month, and it's been a huge part of our portfolio. 2 kids now, so we are going to truly passive syndicates here recently on there. But that's one area of the book that I think we did a good job of, is understanding that real estate provides 2 things that not many asset classes do: tax advantages and leveraging OPM, other people's money. Right now, when you go into syndicates, right, you may not be able to leverage other people's money as well, but now we can leverage people, right? Nobody ever talks about leveraging other people. Leveraging other people's money, that's what a mortgage does, right? Leveraging other people's time, experience, right? Knowledge, things of that nature. Where we can be a passive, silent investor in here as they go fight the battles of that multifamily development or whatever that business is, right? That's where I'm heading personally here, right? But that's what I think.
Yeah, because you're building an asset in your business, right? You're becoming a specialist in what you do, or you are a specialist in what you do. Your highest and best use and all of your energy and brain power should be there, and you'll let somebody else who spent all their 15, 20, 30, 40 years executing the play that they've decided to go all in on and be a specialist in, right? So you're extracting all that juice, just like somebody comes to you and they're extracting all the juice from you, right?
That's right.
It's the same thing, right? That's
absolutely. And when we bought our homes, it was at a point in time where not only were they making really good money, but compared to our net worth, it was a really substantial asset, right? Now I'm not going to lie. Anytime I spend on my real estate, it's actually taking money out of my pocket because my business is such a better asset than that real estate
100%.
is right
I
now,
get that.
right? So that's what we do really well. But I would just take one step back and zoom out and say we can't lose sight of this. All a good financial plan does is it reverse engineers a plan to help you get from the life you're currently living to that unlived life within, right? That's all it is. That's why we call the book Empowered Money, right? It's not about rates of return and which stocks to buy, right? It's about, hey, here's the life you have and here's the life you want to live. And we all have those. Some of those points are much smaller for some of us. Some people, I look at some people, I'm like, man, the difference between the life that guy lives and the life he wants to live is almost nothing. What is he doing? Let me go follow him, right? And so we go and we learn from those people. But some people, there's a huge gap right there. And we believe that the difference between those 2 points is just a really well thought out and well executed financial plan, right? And so that's what I think we can deliver people. We do this. I wrote this book to help people live a more fulfilling life. Not to accumulate more wealth, right? Yeah, that's a byproduct. We need to do that, right? Right? The science of getting rich, right? We need to, in order to be able to live our fullest lives, to be more, have more, do more, buy more, give more, we need to have more money, right? So, how do we reverse engineer this plan to help make that happen?
I'm sure you've read the book Die with Zero.
And you know what, Rob? It has been mentioned to me so
You got to
many
go read it.
times.
You got to go read it.
So
Yeah.
many times, right? And I have yet to read that, but man, it has been mentioned to me a ton. So obviously, I need to go read it.
Yeah, you should just go read it because it's just a different spin and perspective on like this thing that everybody's chasing. But then when you really sit down and get quiet, it's like, okay, why are we building what we're building? And like it's about getting quiet and then really coming to terms with what matters, right? And I think that's part. And I heard that the reason why I said that is because I heard that right now when you were saying that, you were like, listen, it's not about more zeros. It's about getting clear about what you want and the life that you want to live. And everybody they have a different vision of an identity of what that is. And so just get clear on what it is you want, right? That brings you
Got it.
joy, happiness, freedom to you means something different to somebody else. What's so cool about this, there's so many different variations to play this game, so many different ways up the mountain, as Alex Hermosi would put,
Yeah.
that you just have to get quiet, think about it, and then reverse engineer it, and then build it,
Yeah.
right?
Rob, if we could talk about legacy planning for just 1 second.
Yeah, yeah, let's do it.
I
Let's do
think
it.
it's so important here, right? So I think it's important for us to realize two things. Number one, until like 1900, humans did not live to age 65 on average, right? And so us planning to retire from age 65 to age 90 is so unnatural. In the 500,000 years of evolutionary humankind, we've been worried about what are we eating the next meal. And now all of
Yeah.
a sudden, we're having to put money back for 30 years for 30 to 60 years in the future, right? It's not natural. We need to know that. We need to create systems and processes to help us automatically set money aside on that, right? Now, let's take that even further and say, okay, inheritance, legacy planning, right? Passing down assets, that's really new. That is like late 1800s England when people actually started having land and they needed wills and trusts and things like that, right? For thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, the true legacy that we left behind to the next generation was the lessons we learned, right? And the skills that we had, right? Those are the two things. And we cannot forget that because when we are working with wealthy people, right? They're like, well, we're going to leave behind all this money. Yeah, but your kids don't know how to handle this. They didn't learn that. They didn't earn that, right? They don't know what to do with this stuff. So we've got to go in, and that's where good estate planning comes in. Hey, if we've got 3 kids and $3 million, and let's say there's 3 logs in a fire, okay, and we hand each kid $1 million, right? A couple things. It might burn their hands. It's probably going to burn their hands. They're probably not wearing the appropriate material to handle that $1 million. Kind of like winning the lottery ruins people, right? $1 million is a lot of money, right? The second thing is that fire is not going to burn as bright if they're separate. The third thing is not going to burn as long if they're separate. right? So we've all kind of heard of this, the Rockefeller approach versus the Carnegie approach, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
so,
We were
what we're
talking about that
working
this morning.
yeah, yeah. So what we're working on with clients from the very beginning here is okay, here's where you are financially. That's number one. Let's figure out this point in time. But then we got to build out how do we have your legacy reflect your values? How do we have your money reflect your values? Now that we got two data points, we could draw that straight line. And as we mentioned earlier, that straight line is the most tax advantage, most cost efficient way from point A to point B on here.
So, are you a fan? Because we were having this discussion this morning. Like every Wednesday, we early with our team, we have a Mojo Monday, Tactical Tuesday, Wednesday is Wealth Wednesday, and we got on the topic of infinite banking, right? So, what would the Rockefellers do? Going back to that, and we were talking about the pros and cons. You've got uh, uh, what's his face, Dave Ramsey, that hates the concept of
Totally.
whole life policy, or like just loathes it, and then you have other people that are like, okay, no, this is a really good thing. And so I'm just curious, like, what are your thoughts on infinite banking, whole life
Yeah.
insurance policy?
Well,
Like,
let me tell you what I hate. I hate extremes because they're
mm,
very rarely true. Whole life's
mhm.
awful, Dave Ramsey. Not true. If it was awful, then a lot of smart people are
Really wealthy, rich people wouldn't be
right,
doing it. Yeah,
right.
yeah,
And we also
yeah,
say whole life's a miracle product. Not necessarily true, right? In my opinion, whole life has to fit within a plan. And the truth is, Dave Ramsey is not a financial planner. Dave Ramsey is a master marketer. Okay,
yeah,
and the
yeah,
truth is, for maybe 80 to 90% of this country's population, whole life is not the way to go. Right? They need
yeah. Pay your
their
credit cards, right? Like basic.
their
Yeah,
resources are limited. Go get as much term insurance as you can because if you die tomorrow, all that matters is that we're delivering the right check. Right? However, for a plan that is actually a plan, not just slinging insurance. That's how it gets a bad name, right? But we actually have a plan. And we actually are trying to get a certain allocation of your dollars into whole life insurance because, for all intents and purposes, it's a really tax advantage safe place to keep your money, right? And then we loan against that to go do things like real estate, to go do things like get ourselves out of debt to the IRS because we didn't set aside enough in our quarterly estimates, right? Yes, it's a very strategic Swiss Army knife of things that you can access at any point in time. And so, am I a fan of it? I own it, so I guess so, right? But where I get irked a little bit is when people pitch it as the only thing, right?
yeah,
And it does
yeah.
not need to be the only thing. It needs to be a complement. It needs to be a complement here because in a well-designed financial plan, that defensive part, which I believe life insurance is defensive in nature, if we've got a really good defense, all of a sudden we may be able to be more aggressive on offense. If we know our defense is going to stop them, maybe we can go for it on 4th and 2 right here, right? That's what I want my life insurance to do, is to help me make more money in other areas by being able to be more aggressive. And here's the key point, to be more aggressive for longer, right? Because if we've got, I don't know, 10, 20% of our allocation at retirement, in a whole life insurance, a true whole life insurance, not variable, but a true whole life insurance policy that does not go down, well, now all of a sudden, where we were going to need to go and switch to a 60-40 portfolio, maybe we don't have to, right? Maybe we can stay 80-20. Hell, maybe we can stay 100-0. Who knows, right? And every single time that we are able to change asset allocation, we're able to get a better rate of return for a longer period of time. If you look at compounding interest really doesn't matter until the very end. So all of a sudden, if we don't have, what we call a volatility buffer, like a whole life insurance policy, right? And we've got to go from 80-20 to 60-40, we're really going to limit the amount of compounding interest that's in there. But when we've got an asset that doesn't go up and down with the stock market, it only goes up, now all of a sudden we can be more aggressive with our stocks because when down markets happen, and I need everybody listening to this to understand, it's been so long since we've had a true correction, a true down market, that we're forgetting that it happens. And then it happens roughly every 5 years, about 20% of the time, right? We've got to have a plan for when that happens because, man, it has been good for a really long time, right? But when we have a plan for those down markets, we don't have to sell stocks in the down markets. We don't have to take blood from a wounded soldier here, right? Because we have this other non-correlated asset class we can pull from. Now all of a sudden, we may not need to go to the 60-40 allocation. Maybe we'd be more aggressive, earn that extra percentage rate over the next 30 years. And look at your portfolio, what happens if that happens. So, to answer your question, Rob, I hope you see some passion here. What I hate are these extremes, right? And what I love is a well designed financial plan, not a solution led, let me hit you over the head with whole life insurance and all the benefits here. No, let's create a plan and let's strategically figure out and reverse engineer, hey, what amount of money do we want to have in this asset class to maybe replace some of our bond portfolio to just get us a little bit safer in the future?
Part of our discussion this morning, and we'll kind of wrap it up on this, but part of our discussion was this morning was like, know thyself, right? You more than likely, as you're sitting down with somebody and you are asking them questions, you're probably determining what's their risk factor. What, is this person more defensive in nature? Are they more aggressive in nature? If they are more aggressive in nature, should they play more defensive in nature, right? Like it's like you're helping them build this thing, maybe based on their personality. Like, by the way, I'm watching the Charlie Sheen Netflix thing right now.
I
Man,
haven't
talk
started. I
about,
can't wait.
it's just a train wreck, right? And you're like, oh my goodness. But what's so interesting, it's like, the reason why I bring that up is because know thyself. Like Charlie now knows himself, but man, there was like a period of time where it was, and I'm sure he's still susceptible to this. Like, I haven't seen the whole thing, but man, just protecting yourself against yourself. And maybe a good advisor does that along the way, right? Is protecting your clients against maybe some natural tendencies that they have. Just speaking from experience, like I've been through several cycles, and I have several friends that seem to repeat the same pattern over and over again. And I'm like, why are they repeating the same pattern, right? They told me they were not going to do this the last time the market crashed, and now here they are doing it again. And now they find themselves in the same problem they were in 10, 15 years ago, right? Like, do you find that as like a financial advisor, like you're protecting people from themselves?
Say, I would say more than anything, I'm more of a financial therapist at the end of the day, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so, the truth is you don't hire a financial advisor for the good times. You hire them for the bad times. It's not. If you were to go hire a financial advisor and you look at the rates of returns, during good times, they may not be any better than what you can just go get in an index fund, right? But it's about not losing money at the end of the day, right? When times are bad, how are we insulated there with that? And oftentimes, as we mentioned, it's about human nature that we're coaching around on this. Yes, everything that you just said is 100% accurate here. We're trying to save people from themselves. We're trying to automate and systematize their savings so that they don't think about it, right? There's two types of people in this world: those who spend and then save what's left over, and then those who save and spend what's left over, right? We're trying to get people to save automatically before they have the chance to spend on there, because we need to understand that not all times are good. Life's not linear, neither are your finances, right? And so we need to have a good plan in place, and maybe even follow me here, maybe even put you in a position to make money during the next market crash. How cool would that be? How cool would
Yeah.
it be to be strategic
Yeah.
and say, hey, listen, we're going to be optimistic, because it does pay to be optimistic. It does not pay to hide money underneath the mattress, right? You get to tell people I told you so, but that's about it, right? We want to be we want to be optimistic and opportunistic, but we also want to have some some strategies in the background so that if we do have a correction, we can hop on it.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. The last downturn is when really, like, that was the best time for me, right? Like, that was the best time for me, right? Like, and I learned of that downturn that money doesn't die. It's energy. It just gets transferred somewhere else. And so you just got to put yourself into the path of money, which means you need to you put yourself in the path of energy. And for my real estate friends out there, just another way to agents, another way to translate that is, during the last financial crisis, regular agents were suffering, but REO and short sale agents made a killing. They just learned a new skill set, and they helped people navigate difficult waters in a difficult time, and then did really well. And investors that were not fearful when everybody was fearful, when they were greedy when everybody was fearful, they did well, right? And so on the investment side, we just kept dollar cost averaging houses. And I'm like, man, we should have just bought way more, but we got a little piece, so we're okay. We're okay. Well, Alan, thank you so much. How do people find you online? What's your socials?
Absolutely. So, hey, there's two things I mentioned. One was the empowered-money.com, and also we have social media for that. And I do want to just put a plug in for our newest company, the businessplanninginstitute.com. Very long, but it's just spelled exactly as it sounds. Thebusinessplanninginstitute.com. If you own a business, go there. We are working on the website right now, but you can still fill out this form. We will get you a free valuation, a free business valuation, so you know what the value of your company is right now. And then what we'll do is also include in the report what it could be if we are able to spruce up a few of
That's
those things,
awesome.
right?
I think that's so cool. That is so
Yeah, yeah.
cool.
And then
Yeah.
obviously you can connect with me. LinkedIn is my main one. I've spent a lot of time. I found that Instagram I was spending way too much time on it. So LinkedIn is kind of my social, right? So if you can reach out to us on LinkedIn, Alan Franks, you can find me pretty easily.
Alan, I appreciate you spending time with me today, man.
Thanks so much, Rob. This was a blast.
Same here.